800 years of trauma inflicted in 80 minutes. There is nothing like beating England. Let's start the show. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Interpro Show, your home for all things Irish rugby from across the professional and amateur men's and women's game in Ireland. I am joined as usual by Adam and by David. AI Ben has once again fallen into difficulty and we shall see if he makes it on. But the gents are with us in triumphant fashion after a weekend to savour. Just don't go looking into our predictions last week. Just yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Gentlemen, good evening to you. Adam, I'm gonna start with yourself. How are you on this fine Tuesday evening?
Yeah, I'm all good. I'm wearing my Merseyside team. I'm wearing my Merseyside team today for Gindura, because they're playing at the mighty Hill Dickinson Stadium, which I'll go to and support Fiji. Just like I did this weekend with my actual country. So so yeah,
It's
grand.
not a deep lying hatred. It's just tribalism. Isn't that what they call it?
Yeah, I'm sure they wouldn't support I'm sure they wouldn't support us if we played Fiji, so
You'd be surprised. David, before we really get into how Ireland embarrassed England, which is going to be the title on YouTube and all good platforms where you should subscribe as always. Just your initial thoughts on the Six Nations weekend because you had Ireland beat England, Ireland beat England, Ireland beat England. That's legends, seniors, and under 20s. I'm reliably informed. And then you also had a shootout between Wales and Scotland, and you had what I'm led to believe was a good game between Italy and France. But to be fair, I was on the road and I missed it myself. So your thoughts on the weekend gone by?
I think it's been like one of the more exciting. It's continued to be one of the more exciting Six Nations. I mean, it's going to be slightly muted by the fact that France probably will win a Grand Slam, but a lot of expectations from the start of this competition have already been subverted. You know, Italy getting such a strong start. You know, sorry, my cat's going mental in the background. Beating Scotland, Scotland beating England, England coming into this tournament on such a high. Everybody was billing it as a two-horse race for the title with the Grand Slam shootouts pegged for that final weekend. That's now completely out the window. England, I don't think can win the competition anymore after week three, which is a pretty dampener to put on their weekend. Wales decided to show up against Scotland. They did it against us last year, and like Scotland, we managed to just about beat them. But it's scary and humbling when the team who's arguably the worst in the competition comes out and really gives you a rattle. Um, and then Italy against France. That it was a tight game for most of it. It was a real kind of it was an arm wrestle, and it's impressive for any team to pull France into an arm wrestle because they love scoring tries. They're really, really good at it. And I think Italy would be frustrated that they weren't able to capitalize in response because it meant that France did always have at least a two-score lead on them. I think even coming out of the first half. And then it came to the end of the game, and when Italy got tired, France pounced, and they pounced unmercifully. So that was an example of you give this French team an inch, they will take a mile. But I would wonder if there's lessons for everyone else in what Italy did in the first 40 to 60 minutes of that game for how you might handle France, because so far I think Italy have handled them best. And then Ireland against England. I think we were all a little bit nervous coming into this one. I was. I'm usually quite bullish about these things. I bet on the under 20s. I didn't bet on the seniors, and they did a hell of a number on them. And yeah, it's a mixture of the wheels coming off the English chariot, but it's also the Irish were good, and they looked smooth, they looked slick, they played really nice rugby, and they played it comprehensively. This was a team performance. So yeah, I'd love to say I know how this competition is going to pan out. I think we all do. It's got France's name written all over it, but how the rest of the tournament, how the other four teams handle the rest of it, I don't think any of us really know, and that's kind of an exciting place to be.
Yeah, there's a battle for second now that's starting to develop. Like Ireland are back in that race firmly. Probably the front runner because they've got Scotland at home. Scotland probably like, the whole elephant atop of a tree line, they're probably going to fall off. They're probably not going to stay there. But if they do, they'll deserve it. England have to bounce back, but it's now people are saying they won't win in Rome, which I do think is too far the other direction. Like Italy have been very good, and I'll get onto them in a second. But like the whole thing of England won't win in Rome unless they make these changes, or like it's like, but like they're not that bad. You don't become a bad team overnight. They've got issues to solve. You don't become a bad team overnight, but they do have a lot of issues to solve. I think with Italy, like Adam, you were on the Six Nations rewind as it's been called for this short period this week. If not for Ireland beating England, I think your tagline is Razzie was right. Italy are a good team. Like Razzie got it right. Like he really did, and Italy are very impressive. But this is not the Six Nations Rewind. You can find that on the Global Game Night channel with Adam, Hugh Griffin, and Ethan as well. But this is the Interpro show. So, like any good Irish podcast, we are going to be so triumphant. We don't have rights to start just playing like Dark Doom and loads of different songs. But if we did, we would every time we remind you that Ireland defeated England in Twickenham, in front of the Prawn Sandwich Brigade and Kate Middleton herself by 42 points to 21. And I should say there was probably other royals in attendance. Certain ones would not have been there, but David, I'll start with yourself, I suppose. You kind of touched on it, a very seismic win, and like it's the type of victory that just makes you stand up, and it just transports you. Like it feels like 2023 again. It feels like no one can stop us when we get into this groove. But it's literally like, even if you look at the stats, the last time Ireland hit a level like this was Marseille 24, the next game after the World Cup. So it's been a long time coming, this one.
Yeah, it has, and I think the one of the frustrating things about Ireland over the last say 18 months or so has been that even in victory, we haven't always looked superb. I'd say the Australia game maybe being an exception. Australia having their own problems. As much as they've had good days out in the last
Could,
year,
couldn't catch a couldn't catch a cold that
they
night was one of the
couldn't.
big
And
problems.
we had Mike Hansen at fullback, and it was a fun game, but you don't necessarily feel like you learned a massive amount from it. I think. The most heartening thing for me with this game was, and I think I said it in the intro, how much of an all-court performance it was. On the rewatch, I did remember the first 15 minutes of the game were very rocky. Like we had, I think we went 3 points up, but it was a while before we got the first try. Um, England were on top of us. They showed like they could get space on the width. They could put a bit of pace into the game. It didn't feel like we were quite clinical enough, but something clicked. I think it was around the time George Ford started missing kicks to touch, um, where Irish players just started as a unit operating really well. And that for me was the most heartening part was that it wasn't just one player had a really good performance and two players had really good performances. James Gibbs Park and Stuart McCluskey, who somehow hasn't gotten a player of the match award yet. It's just insane. But the pair of them were unplayably brilliant. But it wasn't just them. We had the moment leading towards Gibson Park's first try where he carries the ball, he offloads to Crowley. Crowley does gets through a hole and then offloads to Jeremy Lockman, who's running a fantastic support line. I think I said at the time I thought it was Jamie Osborne going by the hair and the support line, but it wasn't. It was a
and
it was a it
and
was a
place of
loose head
birth as
prop.
well. Place
Yeah,
of
it was
origin.
it was a loose head prop running that line, and carrying well. Credit for word for Jeremy Lockman. We there was a lot of talk about him to go fourth in the depth chart, and this tournament has not been superb for him. He's had good moments and bad moments. I thought he was brilliant in this game. It wasn't, and like the scrum was something that he's been cited for before. But I thought his loose play was great. His carrying, as I said there, was fantastic. His defensive work, he was chopping legs left, right, and center. It was really impressive to see. But so we have that happening there. We have Robert Balakoon and Tommy O'Brien. I'd forgotten as well how early O'Brien came on. James Law obviously going over the groin injury, dominating the air. England probably ruining the fact that they had George Ford, who's not a tall man, and then Marcus Smith coming on to replace Freddie Stewart. Also, Freddie Stewart, obviously a tall man, Marcus Smith, not a tall man. So you had the two wingers dominating the air, running excellent support lines off each other. When we talked about how great it is having pace on one wing. Now we had pace on both wings, and the two of them were very happy to mix and match and follow each other across to their respective wings. You had Kellen Doris back to his usual dynamic best. Josh van der Flier running some excellent lines, and the English will be disgusted by what they let get through. Stuart McCloskey's line break, Josh van der Flier's line break, both fantastic efforts. But again, there's English players who should have stuck tackles to stop that happening. Um, but the fact that I could go through the whole team and list out excellent moments from basically the whole starting squad and most of the bench was the most heartening part of it because it was a full court performance. Um, and the way that they were able to link off each other meant that any dip, any deficiency, Jamie Osborne gets himself sent to the bin. It's okay, we can reorder. Gary Ringrose has to go off. So Kieran Frawley ends up playing part of the game at 13, which even as versatile as he is not a position he plays very much in. Jack Crowley would be frustrated to miss his two kicks early on off the tee, has a bit of a dodgy crossfield kick, but then builds back into the game, kicks the rest of his points, controls the rest of the game, runs some excellent running lines. So there was, I felt like there were no mistakes we didn't compound mistakes. We built off of errors and corrected for them, it didn't feel like there was a player that came out of that match not looking a lot better than they did going into it. And I think the cohesive nature of it is for me the best part of it because we've had games where we've had players have individually excellent efforts, but it's a 15-man game. You need everyone to have a good game, and in this one they all really did. Even the fact that we had such a wide range of try scorers, it was Gibson Park, Balakoon, Tommy O'Brien, Dan Sheehan, Jamie Osborne, five tries, five players, four backs, like that's even that fact that it wasn't just pick and go, maul try, pick and go, maul try, that this was running rugby, both the Robert Balakoon try and the Tommy O'Brien try. I think technically with the Balakoon one, there's a single phase because McCluskey gets brought down and Gibson Park has to get it wide, but really it's basically an offload and a pass. Both of those, we get into the 23 and score straight away. Like it's playing rugby from where Ireland don't usually play rugby from, and it worked. So, I think there will be an analysis of how poor England were. Their heads went down. George Ford having a bad day out of hand is very un-George Ford like. You would wonder how much the Scotland game rocked him, certainly for him personally, getting charged down and then having that charge down be turned into a try. It's got to be a really tough day for a player like that. So Ireland definitely benefited from that, but they were able to capitalize on it and capitalize with brutal effectiveness. So it was a really heartening performance, and in contrast to previous competitions, we had a poor start against France. It was against France. It was probably always going to be poor. Italy was better, but not perfect. And then this was brilliant. So it does seem like we're building into the tournament, which is good because in the last two seasons, it's gone the opposite direction. And I think it's easy for people to forget because we finished first in 24 and third in 25. But there was a lot of similarities between those two tournaments as well. We lost the fourth game in both of them, one against England, one against France. And our final match, Scotland and Italy, were both incredibly poor. Like even the Scotland game that won us the championship, I think I was at it. It was a really a really dodgy affair to win us that championship. The one against Italy again, I think heads were down at that stage, and we knew we were already out of it, and we just didn't really care. It seems to be going the other way this tournament, and we seem to be trending upwards. And if we can continue on that into two final home games, you would hope that we can finish really strong, and I think that'll what was a very dour kind of triple crown last year could be a very kind of jubilant triple crown this year. And you never know. There are still two games to play. I would have been betting on England a lot more before this weekend than I am now. But all we can do is play as well as we can and take the points where we can get them and see how the cards fall. And if that's how we finish the tournament with a triple crown and second place, I know you don't care that much about second, but the accountants sure do. I think that'd be a pretty good tournament, and a tournament in which we have found that if we have to go a layer deeper, if we have to go to a Jeremy Lockman, if we have to go to a Nick Timoney, Rob Balakoon, Tommy O'Brien, they can play, and I
Yeah.
think that's a really good thing to have come out of this tournament with.
Yeah, I think I'd need to go a step further. I've definitely seen that line of like we've found depth. I think we found a few starters. To be honest, I don't know if Rob Balakoon is fit in the summer. Now I obviously have different thoughts on the summer and how to approach it, but if he's fit in the summer, I don't know how he's not going in as number one. Like even like first and foremost, like Mac Hansen is out. He is expected to miss the summer internationals after his interview remarkably on the Tommy Tiernan show. Um, he's expected to miss the summer internationals. I don't know. Like that's for me is a huge one. I don't know how Nick Timoney is outside the match day 23 when we return. I would have said something similar about say Cormac Juku, but obviously wasn't involved the last day. Doesn't look like he may be involved against Wales. But to kind of highlight your point, look, I usually push back on like winning the right way. There's winning. Winning is the most important part. Ireland, like this is from my own research, Ireland's 4.3 points per 22 entry is their best in a tier one game since that 2024 away win to France and Marseille, where they scored 4.2 points per entry. Practically the same. They had a huge amount against Portugal last summer, but that one obviously a tier two game, hence the divider. But I suppose Adam, like a performance like that deserves its flowers. Yes, everything went Ireland's way. Like there was 20 minutes of weathering the storm, taking everything England had, but from there, like no one put a foot wrong. They got the calls. I know the disallow gives the park try for me was probably the wrong call, but anyways, they kind of got the calls, got to bounce the ball. England weren't playing well. England were falling off tackles. Everything just clicked. And you don't get that too often. And I think even for a team who looked, but even by their own admission, they were a little bit low on confidence, like for a while.
Mhm.
That's gonna do them wonders, isn't
Yeah, just like my quads worlds failed me for that game.
it?
But yeah, it was one of those performances where I was watching it, and there's a player that I feel like went under the radar in terms of how good he played. James Ryan had his best game for Ireland in years. I thought he was an absolute monster on the pitch. He was really fronting up in everything that he was doing. There was an element of you know, real like McCarthy also had his best game. Like the second row pairing was brilliant. There's like a lot of players that I thought, that I did speak on this podcast a lot of beforehand, and I was a bit like skeptical and things like that, but I think it makes the mark of a team, and it makes the mark of how a lot of the players reacted to it as well. Like, reports of our death are greatly exaggerated. I think it was Mac Hansen put in like he was at Twickenham and he said, I don't know what was the quote that he said. I think you
Irish rugby is dead or something, and
yeah,
something like that. But I suppose there's probably two sides to look at it. I might ask you on that because on one side, players say, "Oh, we don't consume these things, we don't read these things," but it clearly got to them. But also at the same time, there was 18 months of evidence that they were on the slide. So like, you can't exactly expect
yeah.
people to treat them the same. Now, they will get their praise this week, 100%, and they will deserve it. But they can't have been expecting, massive praise after, say, Paris and the Italy game, were they?
Yeah, and even when you look at the no November internationals, they weren't exactly the greatest November internationals we've ever had. Our idea of a good November internationals would have been a win against South Africa or New Zealand for us to be considered like top four. I feel like as I said this on the Six Nations podcast, I think for us to be top four, we need to beat a team that we are, you know ballsy against, like a New Zealand or a South Africa. Or I said like the England at Twickenham was that performance that we needed, because it's England, it's Twickenham, it was record breaking. We annoyed all the right people. I saw a video of Jeremy Clarkson leaving the game early, and I was just like, this is what like everything was made for. That Gibson Park try at the start. There was a lot of things that I thought, like there was like a couple of lucky moments, like that tag furlong clear out. It was lucky.
That's a card for me. Like, to be honest, the game is
It
probably as good as one at that stage, but that's a card for
Oh
me.
yeah, it was very lucky. Like I did think we got away with that. But to have a referee just come up to the well, we you kind of burst our bubble at the very start of the podcast was saying that he didn't actually say my body is gone, but he
No.
said my quads are gone. But I just I just thought everything was so like perfectly tailored to us. Like it was just like, this is great. I had 12 cans of Guinness that night, and it was just, I was sending messages into the group chat going, look at this meme. Now look at this meme. Now look at this. And I woke up that morning going, wow, I am class.
It was actually, oh, I made you delete this one.
Yeah, I think there was I didn't even think there was one that I was gonna I deleted out. There was like a video where there was a video, but it was just like it was just a funny video. But I was just like, there's no context to rugby behind this. But yeah, it was just like I did feel like as certainly living in England, it made that bit sweeter. I think Vittorio said in his podcast, I think Jamie Dornan mentioned the same. There's nothing better than living in England and beating England in the rugby because you can wear your Irish rugby shirt out now and not feel like, oh no, because like you're above them.
Might just move off of that. We won't get into
No,
who
no.
who comes up higher on the human rights listings.
Oh no, no, not like in that way, but like just like you puff out your chest a bit more. You're feeling like you're confident in your team, and I did
Bragging
say,
rights is what
yeah,
it's
it's
called.
bragging rights. It's bragging rights, and I do feel like as well. Now we're looking at a situation where we could win a triple crown, and I feel like a triple crown this year is a lot different to a triple crown last year because last year we expected the Six Nations in general. This year we didn't expect much. So a triple
Yeah.
crown is going to be the best case scenario for the Six Nations. We
And
built
they're
some,
going to have to work for it as well. Like Scotland are in
yeah,
a Six Nation or a Triple Crown decider,
yeah.
regardless of what happens in round four. They haven't won one since 1990. To put that into context, I won't because people are going to feel old. Um, but look, you know when 1990 was.
I wasn't born.
Yeah, we know that
Two
anyways.
two of the hosts, two. Wait, David, when were
I
you
wasn't
born?
born. Excuse me, excuse
Whoa,
me.
the
I
Interpro
wasn't born in
show wasn't
1990.
even. Sorry about
Exactly, exactly.
that.
Apologies to our what would it be, 35 to 46 demographic on
None
on,
of
on
none of the
YouTube.
hosts of this podcast, present or absent, were born in 1990.
Yeah,
And
exactly. So
that's
that's the last time
wild.
Scotland won Triple Crown. So like it is a big
Yeah.
deal, but I suppose we have to touch about England for a minute. I know we're not an English show. Six Nations show is not an English show. We'll leave that to the people who wear suspicious red hats and have GB in the title. But this was bad. This was bad from England. And like I would be accused of having pumped their tires beforehand. And I had one lad like getting on to me about like you should fess up to getting this wrong. And I was like, no, it takes a big Irish performance to win a Twickenham. That's always been the case. This was a big Irish performance to win a Twickenham. Everything we had seen for the last 12 months indicated that England were getting better. Like they got over the line against Scotland, then they got over the line against France, and they finished the Six Nations strong. Summer is summer. They beat New Zealand, they beat Australia. They went to Cardiff, they made light, or sorry, they played Wales in Twickenham, they made light work of them. And then just the last 2 weeks, it's like air out of the balloon, and it's kind of like the whole thing that was said about Ireland about like eventually the miles will catch up to you. That's what England have looked like the likes of Maro Itoje, Tom Curry, Ben Earl, Ellis Genge in particular. They look leggy. They look tired. They don't look present. George Ford, everyone is saying it, and I do feel for the guy. I've never seen him play that badly. Like he is your nuts and bolts safe 10. I've never seen him play that badly. I think the calls for Finn Smith to come in Rome is not a bad decision, and not just saying that because I'm a huge Finn Smith fan. But like everything about England was off, and like even the whole thing, like again, it just shows that like it gets missed. Like I actually don't know who played well for England. I thought Tommy Freeman did all right with his limited touches. Like he did well, but he had a tough task. Tommy O'Brien played
And
very well,
Ollie
but
Lawrence was okay in attack. Like I thought
even
he
even
was
at
quite
that,
threatening, but
he
yeah,
ran well down Jack Crowley's channel. But even at that, like Jack Crowley did pretty much have a handle on him. Like not
yeah.
not as much as he'd
He was
like,
able to
but
stop. He was able to stop him.
he was able to stop him a few
Mm.
times, not every time. But yeah,
And
it's kind of
it was
hard.
Ollie Lawrence that Stuart McCluskey ran past for his line break as well.
Exactly.
Like
And like
Lawrence is the one he
Oh
fends
yeah,
off with one
I
arm.
did it on
yeah.
my Substack. Where does that come from? It's because Ireland were getting over the gain line anyways. They were so afraid that Ireland were just going to run over them. And maybe in England's head they were genuinely more afraid of Ireland than anyone we've seen in this tournament. I do believe that's a factor. They defended Ireland like they were 2023, and it ended up playing out like it was 2023 because of it, because this is not an Irish team. You don't like this whole thing of like being afraid of Tyke Burns swivel pass. Just nail Tyke Burn the tackle. He hasn't shown over the last couple of months that he's going to run over you. No, had a very good game. Don't get me wrong. The same with Josh Van der Flier, guys like this. But England almost gave Ireland a bit too much respect at times, and it just became so easy. James Gibson Park, I mean, talk about having the freedom of the stadium.
Yeah.
Like he had way too much time in possession at times, and like I mentioned it to someone that I was chatting to. He could play another 100 games. He will never get as much luck as he got in that game, and it's not. It was all good play, but every time he went to snipe, it was a wide open lane. Every kick was on the money. Every pass was on the money. Like, again, there's a reason why people are comparing to Antoine Dupont this week. But just for England, like it was poor. And one thing that did stand out to me, I don't know who said, I think it could have been the Independent podcast, that they said they brought in Henry Pollock for his energy. I think it was. I'm gonna. I could be wrong. I think it was Rory O'Connor on the Independent podcast that said this. They said they brought in Henry Pollock for his energy. He's 21 years of age. You shouldn't need him. This is a big test match. This is to try and save your Six Nations chances to make
Yeah.
sure it goes to Paris in round five. You shouldn't need him. Like this is the thing. You shouldn't like. There's enough quality players. And look, there is a incredible irony of some of the people who'd be in my replies telling me to be nice about Sam Prendergast, tweeting about Henry Pollock
Yeah.
as if they're not like the exact same age. I
Mhm.
think even Pollock's younger actually. But anyways,
Yeah.
that's by the by. But enough on England. Adam, I'm going to bring you back in because for me, this is where I don't disagree with David too often. Especially not on text. But I did disagree when he said there was two standouts. For me, there was three. There was Jesse Gibson Park, there was Stuart McCluskey, and we will talk about his tackle in a couple of minutes. And there was Robert Balogun. Unplayable is the word, isn't it?
Yeah, as the resident young guy slash Sam Prendergast Henry Pollock of the podcast,
The Finn Baxter.
I'm the Finn Baxter of the maybe not. Anyway, but yeah, he was unplayable. Like I felt like he made it 11 tackles, four dominant tackles. Every single tackle that he produced, there was an umph in it. Like there was one tackle where he did a bit of a speed bump, but still kept a hold on the player, and it was just like there's nothing that he could have done wrong. The line breaks he had were like as an Ulster fan, it's the same as Stuart McCluskey. It's like the Irish fans have only just discovered him because they don't watch too much Ulster, and it's like no, these guys have been like this for years. Balogun could have had way more caps if it wasn't for him being injured. He's always been, in a way, an Andy Farrell guy. He started against South Africa in 2022, but it's with injury and with poor luck and as we mentioned last week, poor form for Ulster in the end of the Dan McFarland era. There's a couple of like unluckiness to his career, but this is when he's only 28. He's still rapid. Considering the amount of injuries that he has had, like leg wise, he shouldn't still be that quick. He is
Yeah.
unbelievable. And his awareness, and David mentioned it at the start of the podcast, but my that wing partnership of Tommy O'Brien and Robert Balogun gave me so much life. We were talking about the pace of the Ireland squad at the very start of the tournament. And to see this with Robert Balogun like really causing mayhem against England in Twickenham, scoring his try but setting up about two afterwards, it was just perfect. Like he's really coming into his own. And what really bothers me is that Six Nations call him like a breakout player, but as I said, Ulster know that he's a class
He's,
player.
he's, he's like 27, isn't he? Like
He's
he's
28, I think he's
He's
27,
28. I think
28.
he's closer in
Yeah.
age to me. I was going to say on the young player thing. Yeah, I think he's closer in age to me than he is to you guys. He's 1997, I think he is.
But
So yeah,
it's the
he's
same as
28 years old.
Let's split the
Same as
difference
Tommy
though.
O'Brien. But
It's the
like
same as Tommy O'Brien, yeah.
yeah, but that's the thing though, like they're rapid, they're two
But
rapid
is there
players
is
that
there something to be said for now? In their instance, they've had a lot of injuries. Both of them have had a lot of injuries the whole way up. But
yeah,
is there something to be said for how we get these like athletic, super athletic guys? Now, Tommy O'Brien, don't get me wrong, he's not as quick as we make out, but he's quick by Irish standards. So that's why we say
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah.
We're not a quick country.
He's
But
not
like
Balogun quick.
he's no, oh jeez, like Robert Balogun is quicker than like he left Henry Arundel for dust at one stage, and
he did, yeah.
Arundel is fast. Now, again, effort. But it's something to be said for how we bring through these guys. Because you look at it now and you're like, why are we only getting the best out of them at
The
27?
the
Like it's
sevens
it's you know?
The sevens program
Sevens
is
program.
why we have Roy McIlroy.
Roy
What?
McIlroy came through the sevens program.
That's the conspiracy. Sorry.
All those Ulster lads are the same shirt.
I'm more half tempted to tell Lee to cut that bit anyway. Anyway, but the sevens program is the likes of why we have Robert Balakoon, Nick Timoney, Cormac Izuchukwu, JJ Kenny, like the
Zach
proper
Ward,
Zach Ward, Hugh
Hugo
Gaffin,
Keenan, Cormac
Hugo Keenan,
Izuchukwu.
yeah, Cormac Izuchukwu. There's like they're the reasons why we have these freaks. JJ Kenny. These are the reasons why we have these freaks of nature playing for Ireland. An actual athletic prowess. The sevens program getting dismantled, and I know there's not enough money in sevens or whatever, but that is the biggest travesty to ever happen if we want freaks of nature still playing for Ireland that are that quick and are that big, because the sevens rugby is that game. And we're starting to see that now with these with the performances that we get given from the likes of Izuchukwu, JJ Kenny. There's a Connacht player off the top of my head that I can't quite get the name of. The winger from Connacht isn't he not
Oh,
sevens?
Che Mullins.
Che Mullins, yeah,
Yeah.
Che Mullins. Like there's like these players that are performing, but it's a direct result of a different pipeline. That if we didn't have that pipeline, they wouldn't be playing 15s. Zach Ward is that player as well. That you're like, if it wasn't for the Olympics, he wouldn't be playing for Ulster right now. So
If not for Richie Murphy, to be fair, there as well.
yeah,
Like,
if it wasn't for Richie Murphy, it's one of those things where we had a direct pipeline of athletic freaks and they're so good. But the sevens program is that reason why I feel like I go on about the sevens every once in a while, but it should come back.
oh, it's a fair discussion. And even watching the twenties, like, and how they played and everything, there is a genuine, and we may not even have time to discuss them. Like, it was an unbelievable win, but there's a couple of guys there who were like slightly more raw. Like Noah Byrne played a lot of GA. Now, there's probably a question mark to be asked again about like fan coverage and how, like, he played GA growing up. No one talks about his intellect. Ben O'Connor played GA growing up. People said he wasn't smart enough for 20s and all that usual shite and filibuster that you get online. But Noah Byrne is just like this really athletic guy. Like, he's very French. But they've backed him because they were like, if we get minutes into this guy, he can be something. Paddy Farrell last year, just really, really quick, really elusive. You know, like Sean Adogbo is not someone like we're talking about him now. He's probably going to play for Munster this weekend alongside his brother. But we're talking about a guy who was outside on the outside looking in for the under 20s because it was like, don't know if he has it all. Played for a Munster A team against the under 20s, gets in, gets into the team because Brian Gleeson gets injured in the opening night, never looks back, plays every game for the rest of the year, and now look at him, he's this prospect. But there is a question to be asked about how we produce these players because you know it's possibly a discussion point, but that's not for a night like tonight because we have so much positive things to discuss. You mentioned Stuart McCluskey, and I find it funny. I think David Flatman may have even apologized for his Man the Match award. That he was kind of. I
Yeah.
didn't read the full article. Don't get me wrong, but I think he was kind of hinting that, like, geez, you can nearly give it to two lads. To be fair, like, sure, McCluskey was unbelievable, and he was absolutely brilliant. And I think what was really impressive from Ireland, and I mentioned it. I think I mentioned it last week, was Ireland were so quick to just go wide, just fling it wide, just get it wide, get it to Balkan, get it to whoever. The difference in this game was Caelan Doris was winning collisions up the middle. Joe McCarthy didn't carry as much, to be fair. I thought Tyke Furlong, if you watch it back, Ty Furlong's ruck work in this game was phenomenal. Like, he was melting lads at every clear out. He wasn't the only one. But then Stuart McCluskey was carrying well. Jack Crowley was taking us to the line. Gibson Park was sniping. So England got so compressed, and you've seen it with the Balakoon try. They're so afraid of Doris on the screen ball. Then they're afraid of Crowley carrying at them. Then McCluskey just has a 2-on-1 where it's Ollie Lawrence one side, Jack Van Forfleet who's trying to cover across. He's busted a good to get across. So he's a non-factor. Even if he hits McCluskey, he's going to be knocked over. McCluskey straightens the line, makes this break. And I genuinely don't remember the last time I seen a game where there was probably five line breaks where it was just, how did that happen? Like, there's no one around them. There was Josh van der Fleer, Joe McCarthy, granted that was pulled back, Stuart McCluskey. Caelan Doris, even say like the Gibson Park disallowed try. We're just like, how? Like again, there are questions about England. But David, like we talked about individuals, coaching has to be said because we were looking at it last week and we were saying maybe it just needs to be freshened up. And that no, wasn't we weren't calling for anyone's head, but we just meant as a general 1 to 23 plus coaching staff that fresh messages, fresh ideas, freshness was needed. Andy Farr went back to the tried and trusted. He kind of gave these lads one last chance. Like it is that vibe, like one last chance to impress here, because otherwise Nick Timley's going to start, Combs Chukwu's going to start, Kieran Frawley may start, whoever it may be, and these guys delivered, and that is really, really powerful, and that's a word I've used a lot this week and this show, I know, but that's a really powerful form of man management. And yes, we may have had decisions we didn't like with like second row and things like that, but to empower these guys to play as well as they did, that's a massive part of coaching as well, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think you sometimes it's an approach you can take to management where you can show faith in people before they've done the thing, and then they it gives them the bar to rise to. And I think that definitely worked. It seemed like certainly with players like James Lowe, and James Lowe's been through it before. When he first broke into the scene, he had big problems with his defense. He wasn't viewed as being a hard enough worker necessarily on that side of the ball. And he was dropped and he was sent away and he had to go and work on it. And he did. And then he came back and like became a nailed on part of the team and defense became one of his strengths. Josh Van der Fleer, this debate over whether or not he was dropped, or if it was rotation, but he came back in fired up and ready to go. And he cited in years gone by, the motivation for him ending up player of the year was Will Connors coming up behind him and turning to take his spot. So sometimes you need that, and I think the thing with these guys is that they were good enough already that he had a reason to put faith in them. I think it's harder when it's a less tested group of players. If you only have one or two caps and you mess up, you're probably going to lose your spot because you don't have that kind of bank of credit. Whereas these guys do, and I think Farrell knew that if he put faith in them, if he gave them something to fight for, that he could something could be more water could be drawn from that stone, and it's good to see that, particularly in players like Gibson Park, who he's 34, he will be 34 shortly. Like there is a physical limit to how many times you can go to that well, but clearly he's still got a tremendous amount to give. And I thought, like in the short term, it was really nice for Tommy O'Brien to have a chance to come back in because he had a pretty rough day out in Paris. And didn't feature against Italy, and you kind of felt, oh, that might be it, or might be it in the short term. It's wing is a difficult position because usually you either start or you don't play. Um, Tommy can technically play 13, but it's been a very long time since he has. So, I know I thought it was quite odd to see him in the 23 shirt. Clearly there was concern, I think, over Gary Ringrose. It ended up being James Lowe who went down, and Tommy had the opportunity to come on very early and vindicated that choice. And whether or not it was through luck or through some shrewd planning, the bench ended up matching almost exactly what Farrell would have needed out of the team. And everybody who's given an opportunity rose to it. And I think that'll stand in his stead. That he when the situation arises, he will give you the opportunity and it is on you to take it. So I think that's definitely a positive. And I think it's a good sign. I also think, we had a discussion about the other programs and how to get younger guys through. I think Stuart McCluskey is a great example of if you keep playing really good rugby and you're given work-ons and you work on them, you're never too old. Because Stuart McCluskey is 33, I think. He's older than Robbie Henshaw. He's in a position that was dominated by Henshaw and Bundyaki through a mix of injuries and other things. He's now managed to force his way in. And even when Robbie Henshaw is fit and Bundyaki comes back from his ban, it'd be really hard push to say either of them will be taking that shirt back off him. And so to see someone that age be able to force their way into pretty much an assured starting role should be both a source of vindication for him, but a source of encouragement for other players who um, might think, is has my day come? Has my time passed? And I think that's pretty clear evidence that we used to say, if you're good enough, you're old enough. I think he's an example of it. If you're really good enough, you're never too old. So I think that's definitely a positive as well that could be taken out of that.
Definitely. I had to double check I wasn't on mute there because I turned on mute for a second. No, I would agree, and I think like Stuart McCluskey again, you could talk about the athlete point. I thought he never was fully rated by Ireland until about 2022-ish, where he kind of got a bit of a run in the jersey a small bit, or in the matchday squad and showed his worth, and it just shows as well because the game changes, right? And what we're starting to see now is less rucks is a big indicator on who kicks most and longest. So they're kind of controlling different parts. So France are offloading the most. They've very few rucks. They have a very high line break to ruck ratio, which Ireland had in this game. They play with quick ball when they do have it, but they kick for the most amount of meters. Second on kicks, but the most amount of meters. That's showing across the game globally. So what does that tell you? That tells you that the likes of Jamie Osborne at fullback is going to be important because he's got a big clearing boot. That the likes of Robert Balogun on the wing because he can beat men one on one in like half a step is going to be super important. The likes of James Gibson Park. The game changes and sometimes it suits certain guys. And I think that's important too. I think I'm not saying that Ireland brought back in Robert Balogun for this reason because he obviously didn't start in Paris. He got a start in Paris because they felt something didn't work and they brought him in and it worked then. But it does show game is always in flux. But Adam, to kind of wrap up on this, and we're not going to have time to do 20s in any real detail. I'll run over in a second, but where next for Ireland now? Because look, in the grand scheme of things, they could still technically win a championship, but France only need a win next week or the week after in Murrayfield to secure the title. With a week to spare, like we did in 2018 ourselves, that ended up as a Grand Slam. But we're next for Ireland. So it's Wales on Friday night, followed by Scotland a week later. I think the fact that Ireland have, released 11 players this week for URC action probably tells you they'll go strong for Wales, even though they'll have the extra day's rest. But what are you hoping for? Like, should we be saying, right, this is a benchmark, aim for 10 points? Or are you thinking, let's get a triple crown, let's secure a second, and let's talk in the summer? Like, what way are you going? Or is it a mix of both?
I'd say with how France can wrap up the Six Nations this weekend, go for the Triple Crown. We, as I said before, we were not expecting anything like this Six Nations. We, I think, much like everyone, blew up England to be much more than they were. Scotland's going to probably be our uh,
Including England, I was going to say, including
yeah,
the English
yeah.
pundits.
Well, yeah, it's 100%. It's true. Like I feel like a part of everyone and the issue with it was that they had this monumental run of 12 games, and but when you look back at it, they've only had what 3 wins in the last 14 against tier one teams. So in reality, it was a bit fraudulent. But what we need to do is beat Scotland. We need to beat this Welsh team as well. That bear in mind, I thought Wales had a pretty good 60 minutes against Scotland. They frightened Scotland. I think they put everyone on watch as well for the rest of them who they're playing. But as I said, we need a triple crown. This new Nations Championship is going to be very interesting in parts to see what we can do with it. Like the Nations Championship in the summer. I think as a fan, I would love a triple crown, and as I said, I feel like this triple crown is much more rewarding of than compared to last year, because last year we were expecting some form of a Grand Slam or championship anyway. And if we do win the championship, that would be mind-blowing, just greatness. But as I said, triple crown, we'll keep it there. No need for mind-blowness. Cut to me in about 3 weeks' time when France bottle it, England bottle it even more, and Scotland come second.
That in your own little way, Adam. That's the most Adam answer that we've had in a while.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I appreciate that. Now, before anyone jumps in on what Adam is saying, he achieved the remarkable feat this week in our predictions league. The first time that anyone has gone 0-4 all season. He
I,
predicted Wales, Italy, and two England wins. So
I,
just a
I
word to the wise on that one.
So
Well,
I tried to overtake everyone by playing it bold. So it wasn't that I was being stupid. I was just trying to overtake everyone, and I thought like if it went in any way the way I thought it would, I would overtake everyone. And to be fair, I'm more knowledge approval in the fantasy when I became first in the round this week.
we
So
won't talk about that. Some of us had
I
James Lowe and Matthew Jalibert, so
I
we're not going
I
to talk about that. Thank you very
Well,
much.
I had Thomas Ramos captain, so
Yeah, well,
yes.
we can't all be you, can we, Adam? For more of this kind of chat, but also some rugby every once in a while, make sure to subscribe to the Global Game Line for all the latest content. Not just this show. We also have Six Nations Rewind, a bit of an animal, URC Rewind. You've got the Women's Rugby Treehouse. You've got Scrum of the Earth. You've got everything. All things rugby on the Global Game Line channel, wherever you get your podcasts, and of course on YouTube. We are still on Reddit. We are still not on the Leinster Rugby Reddit. Hi guys, please let us in. We're all very nice. David's even wearing a Leinster cap, and he has a cat. Even though it's a bit of a Bond villain look at the moment, but like still, you could let us in and just be nice. I'm in there, but they still haven't kicked me out yet. Just really quickly onto the 20s as Ireland defeated England in Bath in an unbelievable result, in an unbelievable game. As I've said before, I'm covering these games for work, so I'm kind of, you're not getting a proper watch at them, and I meant to watch this one back, and I probably will have to before Thursday. But just a brilliant performance. Lee Fitzpatrick, Josh Neal, Noah Byrne, and Daniel Ryan with the four tries for Ireland. Charlie O'Shea with a late penalty to push them 10 ahead that just took the edge off, that just sealed it. And that was from 50 yards. It was unbelievable. Great performance. And it's interesting because last week Josh Neal spoke about how he felt they had more in them. He felt they could stay chasing, that they could potentially win a title. And France still pulling ahead in that tournament as well. But they've shown something. They've really shown signs of life, and they still have a lot of players to come back. And I think what's most impressive is, again, some of the guys who are standing out. Josh Neal, not long in the country, granted, one of the most highest rated South African schoolboys last year. Rob Kearney was kind of on the outside looking in the squads. Noah Byrne comes from a bit of a GAA background, not fully, but a bit of a GAA background. Um, Obviously, Tom Wood kind of needs no mention. Christopher Barrett was playing on the wing up until, in fourth year in school as opposed to scrum half. Like, so there's a lot of real talent in there. And that's just a couple of players. There's loads more getting into. David, you kind of caught bits of this one. How Ireland, what really stood out to me was how Ireland fronted up. Like when they needed to, they defended really, really well, really heroically. And when they were down the other end, they looked like scoring most of the time. Now, first half was a little bit more wasteful. Second half was just absolutely clinical. There's a reason why they were saying on TV afterwards, if the seniors play like that tomorrow, we'll be happy. Like nothing about the result. If they play like that, we'd be happy. Because this was a brilliant performance from the under 20s.
Yeah, it was stunning. Like, and they'll have been frustrated by that opening loss against France. Obviously, last year was a really poor tournament for them overall. So to now be coming back and being, two from three, putting a very, very strong performance. There's a lot of young lads in that team. Obviously Josh Neal takes all the headlines because of the seeming coup effort to bring him over in the first place. But um, they're playing really nice, really abrasive, really fronting up rugby. And it was they took their own scores incredibly well. But I was also really encouraged to see the kind of the grit and determination at the end. England did kind of threaten at the end to kind of push back into the reckoning. I think we made it a two-score game with a well-taken kick at the just before the end, and then England were coming back. I think it was just they couldn't have won or even drawn, but they could have taken a losing bonus point and a try bonus point, and those can end up being important. And they had a final score that was chalked off due to a forward pass. But the fact that Ireland just kept defending and they seem to have turned it around. And it's kind of the beautiful thing about 20s rugby by its very nature. These are young guys. There's going to be changeover year on year. Josh Neal not going to be one of them, by the way. I think he's only about like 18. He has at
Yep.
least another year in
He's
him.
still Ireland under 19. He's not the only one, but he's still Ireland under 19.
So like there could be a decent core squad there, but no, I thought it was a really promising showing, and it'll be something obviously as we bemoaned the loss of the sevens earlier. These 20 guys, if they go well, they can be the foundation. I think it'd be a great thing to see. I was lauding Stuart McCluskey at the other end of the scale. If there's an 18, 19, 20, well, probably closer to 20-year-old. So there's a 20-year-old Josh Neal who comes out of a couple under 20s campaigns with some serious minutes and some serious rugby under his belt. How great would it be to have someone like that pushing in? We already have Bryn Ward in Ulster, kind of similar age, similar profile, doing the same thing. So the quicker these guys can get up to speed and start playing really nice rugby, the better. And I thought that night in the Rec as well, what a venue for that game. How good it would be to see more international rugby there. It was a great occasion and a really great win. It's always good to be England in England and to get 2 wins, 3 wins over there in one weekend is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, and one of the players who probably would have been a starter, it was seemingly close to being a starter based on the preseason form, was Alex Lautso as well, of a Limerick kid who's also under 19. So you could have two back rows for Ireland next year who were both involved in the. Like he'll probably get capped in the summer if he's fit. So you'll probably have two guys there at least in a very key position. But gents, really quickly before we go, there is URC action this weekend. David, you're in Cardiff for Leinster against is it Cardiff, I
Yeah,
assume.
Cardiff. Yeah, Cardiff.
Um
I hope it's Cardiff. That's where I'll be.
well, I suppose they could move it to Bristol, these Welsh lads. And this is
Yes.
where the show just cuts out because Lee gets fed up of our shit. Um Ben, I assume will be in Thomond for Munster against Zebra. I'm going to be in Galway for Munster, or sorry, not for Munster, for Connacht against Glasgow, and Adam won't be in Bridgend, but Ulster take on the Ospreys down there. David, I'll start with yourself. You'll give us a first eye account of this one next week, I'm sure. Kind of a big one for Leinster in the fact that, even if they head into next week 4 points behind, or sorry, post Six Nations 4 points behind Glasgow, they will have a chance to go top right after the Six Nations. And after the start of the season they had, they can make it 12 wins on the bounce here, then it's kind of like, right, we are really back on track.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think I said it after the Munster game. That has to be us done losing, and so far it has been. But yeah, I mean, like it is still the case. Leinster's stated goal at the start of every season is to finish top of the table and win the competition. And if that is to be our goal, particularly with the Stormers and Glasgow going so well, then we can't be affording to ship games, and the Six Nations can't be an excuse. It'll be a tough one. It'll be an interesting one. It's definitely we're long past the days of Leinster's second team being the second best team in the URC. That hasn't been true for a very long time. Leinster's first team are the best team in the URC, so that's definitely not the case. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think of the Ireland contingent, Harry Byrne is the only Leinster player to have been released back, so be happy to have him.
I have it as about 22 senior players absent for Leinster between Ireland and injuries.
Yeah, so tricky, and we've played Cardiff actually already this season. We played them in a preseason game in Tala, and I was at that game too, and they fairly well put it to us in that game. Their attack was very good. So, yeah, it'll be was that Cardiff versus Scarlets? No, it was Cardiff.
That was Cardiff.
Yeah.
But Cardiff themselves are going to be down. They have only like one senior back row player fit and available
Hmm.
due to Wells Camp and things like that. So
Okay.
it's
Well,
that type of year, isn't it?
we'll hope it can be balanced a little bit, but they're a sticky bunch, and in Cardiff as well, they're a sticky team. So I'm not anticipating a high score line, but it'd be really nice to come away with a win because yeah, it's really not a year where we can afford to ship many points.
Oh, that's the thing. And you've yes, the South Africa tour's out of the way. We've got to go to Glasgow. You know, games like that are always like these two games are probably as tough as Leinster will have it from here to the end of the
Mm.
season. Now they have to go to Ravenhill as well.
Yeah.
Those three are the toughest, but that's half of your running. Do you know?
Mm.
So you don't really want to be slipping up either
Yeah,
because
see the thing
Glasgow
with
could go on a run.
the thing with the South Africa tour as well is that like we usually hedge that at the end of the season, um, because it's at the end of the season, and it's easy to say, oh, you could just do it at the start and then do it the other way around, and that's technically true, but it's different when you start off minus 10 points, as opposed to coming to the end of it and knowing you've already done it. Like as I said, when I said we have to stop losing after the Munster game, I kind of meant literally. Like usually we win all the games, drop maybe one, and then lose the two games on the South Africa tour. We did the losing at the start now, so the rest of the season has to be the winning bit. Otherwise, it is genuinely a step down. And in a year where the rest of the tournament is so competitive, that would end up costing us. If it won't cost us a top eight spot, but it could cost us home quarter or semi, and I think that'd be considered an unacceptable end for Leinster. So yeah,
Yeah, definitely. The next game of the day, I can't remember. I think Munster game is next. Ben's not here. I believe if he was here, he'd be excited to see the two with dog bows. He'd be excited. Tom Wood is training with Munster, so he'd be excited to see him. He'd say that Zebra, when they attack, are genuinely excellent. I think that'll be his exact words, and I think he'd be correct on that one. They are a ruthless attacking team when they get going.
um,
Obviously, Zebra beat Munster last year. I think he'd reference that as well. Um, Ed,
we
I
have
swear he's not an AI language model, but I just think that these are the things he bring up, yeah.
we have
David?
Connacht at 3 o'clock on Saturday, so they're going up
Oh,
Glasgow,
Connacht at three. I
home
I
in the
thought the Munster
Dexcom.
game was sorry,
Yeah,
I should know
the
this.
Munster
I
game is 5:30 in
Munster game
Thomond.
is half
So
five. Connacht
Zebra,
Glasgow at the Dexcom. I'll be at this
yeah.
one. Really looking forward to this one. It'll be my first stint to the new Dexcom media area and all that kind of jazz, I suppose, selfishly.
It's a
But
really nice looking stadium. From the
it
side, from the other side, it looked really nice.
it looks lovely. I'm looking forward to this one. And Glasgow, like for a team. They're at Leinster status for me, not in terms of Europe, don't get me wrong, where even if they go down the numbers, they're starting to look better. Their depth looks better. On paper, it doesn't, but they look so well drilled. We've seen it in that Munster game. They looked so well drilled in that game, and I wouldn't be surprised if they rock up and have a way better performance. But Connacht bring back Darren Murray, bring back Keane Prendergast, they're bringing back in Bundyaki. Um, a little bit of concern around scrum half because I believe both Ben Murphy and Matthew Devine could be ruled out from what I've heard. But no, this is probably game of the week. This is probably our game of the week coming into next week is the clash between Connacht and Glasgow. But finally, Ospreys against Ulster to round things out. Adam, Ospreys is a very tough place to go. At the best of times, Bridgend makes it almost tougher. But that being said, Munster won there earlier in the year, so there's a chance. But then again, yeah, you've got Robert Balakoon and Nick Timoney and all these guys at Stuart McCluskey all up in Dublin, so there's that little bit of hesitation. But Izuchukwu's back, Bryn Ward, guys, I thought.
Yeah, we haven't won in Wales yet, so it'd be nice. It'd be nice to win in Wales.
It's true.
As I said, I think with the type of players that we are getting back, your Izuchukwu's, your Bryn Wards, we really have no excuse not to win it. And I don't think I'm bold in saying that. Ospreys can be a very good team, but I don't think they would have the amount of star power that we have coming back. We have the likes of Ian Henderson that's still fit. Angus Bell's there, Werner Koch's going to be playing. I don't say it in confidence, but I say it more just as like a practically on paper standpoint that we should be getting a bonus point out of this. Um, we really should be. The likes of Zach Ward as well. Like you've had players that have had a nice rest. So you'd hope that, and you'd have players coming back from the Ireland squad wanting to be in the next version of the Ireland squad for the likes of Wales and Scotland. Nathan Doak's coming back. You want Nathan Doak, Cormac Izuchukwu to put their hand up and go, I want to play against Wales. I want to play against Scotland. You know, these players have had a sniff of it. They want way more now. They're seeing the likes of McCluskey and Balakoon that took those two. I would argue that Izuchukwu didn't really do anything wrong against Italy. I
No, he
thought he
didn't.
was. He was pretty hard done by, but this is him proving it now. And I think if you put any team in front of that Ulster team that aren't South African and are not affected by the Six Nations, I feel like this is the time to show Farrell that he should be picking more of the lads. And that's purely out of a watching Ulster this season, knowing how good these players can be, knowing how good the likes of like Jack Murphy can even be as well. He can put his hand up as well. But yeah,
You've mentioned this once or twice, yeah.
yeah, you never know. He's quietly in the background. But yeah, I do see it like being a bonus point, and if it's not, a win in Wales is really welcome this season because, as David said, there's nothing really there's way more to lose now at this part of the season than there is at the very start. We had a pretty good start, shaky middle. We need to kick on with like keeping up with like that good start essentially.
Yeah, definitely. Gentlemen, that's about all we've time for. I think we're in around the hour mark, so I think we should call it quits for the night and move on to next week. We will hopefully do URC chat next week, but maybe not in depth because Ireland will be playing Friday, so we may be back next Wednesday. We shall see on that one. We may be back next Wednesday. We may even have a Welsh guest on with us as well. But from me, Kaelon, from Adam, David, from Puka, David's cat, from Ben, who is not here, but he's always with us because apparently he's AI, and from Adam's collection of jerseys. Until next time, take it easy.